property, the 124 odd acres, we'll call it the Kmart property.
Excuse me, but we're not going to call it anything of the sort. We've had discussion with regard to property outside. We've talked about whether or not there are matters that are subject to litigation or otherwise, and if we will not discuss any specific property, you know that.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is, what if something goes wrong with the business plan, with a general obligation bond, as the town manager spoke at a meeting not too long ago on this subject, there is a risk. Ultimately, the taxpayers are the...
If I may, I think we had a workshop, and I think we discussed, first of all, we have surplus, which is enough money to meet the total obligation. Secondly, there's a business plan, but you attended the workshop. We've gone through all that.
I did not. The daytime workshop, I was not available to attend.
Well, yes.
I did attend the workshop.
Finish your question, I think.
But my question is there a way now, because even in press reports, it's been reported that now, differently than what had been said by previous airport commission members and managers, that in the worst case scenario, those properties that in the past had been said by managers and commissioners could not be put in play because of FAA and MAC monies that had come into the airport. Now I'm reading reports in the press that the commission and the manager are positive on the concept of putting that up as collateral. If things went horribly wrong, the taxpayer wouldn't be on the hook, because those properties, as I'm hearing lately, would be handed back to the town, and the proceeds would not just go, willy-nilly. The proceeds would take care of whatever deficit the airport had. But that ultimately those properties would be made available. Then we have the question of the lease in 2018 and when it expires. But it does seem, this is what I've been hearing and reading in the paper, that there has been progress on the willingness of the commission and the management.
I want to thank you for that question.
Can I have a point of clarification?
Yes, you may.
I believe when the airport made the workshop and they gave the presentation, and they said that if they needed the extra funding, they were talking about properties such as the Mildred's property. Am I
Well,
correct?
you know something,
No.
I don't think any
Is that-
specific properties were ever discussed. The fact of the matter is that there are a number of properties that are, may or may not be
You said
available, but
such
the
as
airport
possibly,
would
maybe,
make good
kinda,
on on this project. Bud Briot.
If I may, we've gone through and we've looked at all of our properties, and we've identified now about 120 acres completely around the entire airfield that we could approach the FAA to surplus and sell. Not that we want to, of course. This would only be in a worst-case scenario. So there's a total of about 120 acres that we've identified.
Outside the fence, essentially.
Outside the fence.
Have you gotten the full approval that you'd be able to, if it was a worst case scenario?
Each property would have to be approached separately, because you'd have to look at the transferring documents and how we acquired that property, and that would determine how you would approach it. There's a manual I just got down the other day from compliance manual from the FAA. It's over 600 pages long. Good portion of it has to deal with getting rid of property. So there's a lot of things that we'd have to go through in order to be able to do it. It can be done, and we would just have to follow those procedures.
I want to thank you very much. Councilor Barry.